Investigators are increasingly concerned tonight that there may be more local victims of a West Michigan doctor who's accused of molesting missionary children.
Target 8 broke this story last week that Dr. Don Ketcham is under criminal investigation for allegedly molesting a girl during an exam at his former Ottawa County practice.
Well, tonight, for the first time, alleged victims from decades ago are talking publicly about Ketcham's secret sins, committed a world away and covered up by missionary leaders.
Target 8 investigator Ken Kolker followed this story from Grand Rapids to Denver and Seattle.
Brian and Marla, we sat down with 5 of Dr. Don Ketcham's alleged victims. They spoke of childhood sexual abuse that led to a lifetime of trauma, about the Baptist mission group that betrayed them by covering up the abuse for years, and their fear that there could be more victims in West Michigan. Ketcham has never faced charges because the alleged abuse would have happened overseas and so long ago. What did he take from you?
My life, my dignity, my soul, just feel like everything.
That was before Baptist mission leaders told Kim James to sign a confession when she was 14, that she was as much to blame as Dr. Don Ketcham for their sexual relationship.
They told me what to write.
Kim James says she was 12 when it started in 1988, the daughter of Northern Indiana missionaries stationed in Bangladesh. Ketcham was 58, from a church in the city of Wyoming, a surgeon, family doctor, and religious leader at the mission compound in a Bangladesh jungle. So by confessing, they're saying that you had an equal part in this, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you were 12 years old? I mean, what does this do to a little girl?
Destroys me.
She says she has tried to kill herself 5 times, took to cutting herself, suffered an eating disorder, has been through a lifetime of counseling, lived for a time in a homeless shelter, has never married.
I still struggle with this even today, but it's just a battle, so.
Much of the Dr. Ketcham story is told in a 280-page report released in March by ABWE, the Association of Baptists for World Evangelism that ran the mission. ABWE is based in Pennsylvania. The highly critical report details years of alleged sexual abuse by Ketcham, 18 children and 5 women, all missionaries or missionary children, listed as victims, all while he served in Bangladesh for ABWE through the 1980s. Much of the alleged abuse under the guise of medicine, physical exams that victims and investigators say went way too far.
As a child, you don't know exactly what's going on, but I knew that he was getting turned on and I could feel it.
The report also details the cover-up by mission leaders that span decades and how the mission failed to notify police or the state of Michigan after Ketcham admitted to a sexual relationship with the 12-year-old girl in 1989. That allowed him to keep his medical license. Even his home church in Wyoming was kept in the dark.
I thought maybe they'd take his license away, and I was kind of shocked that they didn't, that he was still working.
In 1989, after he left the mission, Ketcham started practicing medicine in Allendale, where he stayed until the state forced him to surrender his license 4 years ago, after finally learning of the abuse in Bangladesh. Hi, Dr. Ketcham. Hey, my name is Ken Kolker. I'm a reporter at Wood TV.
Yes, sir.
Ketcham, who is now 85, has refused to talk to ABWE investigators, but we tracked him down. There's a report that says there were 23 victims.
My only comment is don't believe everything you read in the papers.
Okay, 23 victims are all lying?
I did not say that.
So what are you saying?
I'm saying don't believe everything that you read, and I had no further comment.
Okay, what about what Kim James says?
What about it?
I mean, is she lying?
I have no comment.
Anything else you want to say?
No, sir.
More than 25 years later, the doctor's victims are living across the country. We tracked one of them down to Colorado in the shadows of the Rocky Mountains.
And I remember being extremely uncomfortable.
Diana Durrell, who lives outside Denver, is Kim's sister. She says she also is among the victims of the man known as Uncle Don. Uncle is what the MKs, the missionary kids, called all the missionary men in Bangladesh.
He was just good-natured and a lot of fun, and very likable.
Uncle Don was more than a doctor. He also preached, had lots of charisma.
Big booming voice, loved to lead the singing of hymns and things.
But there was more to Uncle Don, a pedigree.
He actually had this huge sort of Baptist cred just with his name.
Ketcham's father was a well-known Baptist pastor, so big that the Welcome Center at Cornerstone University in Grand Rapids is named after him. Kim James was 8 or 9 when her family moved from northern Indiana to Bangladesh in the early 1980s. Her dad was a handyman, kept the hospital running. Before long, she says, Uncle Don took an interest in her, tutored her in math, even let her in the OR during surgeries.
Always told me I was special.
Kim has said the abuse started when she was 12 and went on for almost 2 years, in his office, at his home. She kept quiet until she was home for the summer in Mishawaka, Indiana, at her church, when she told her pastor in July 1989. She was 14.
So I just sat down at his desk and said, is it right when someone does this or this or this to a person? And then next thing I remember is he dropped his pen.
What happened next is almost unbelievable. After the break, a sudden trip to Bangladesh, a confession, and an unexpected confrontation.
Some lady asked me, what's wrong, are you okay? And I almost told her those 2 gentlemen kidnapped me.
Before the break, we introduced you to the first woman to come forward against Dr. Don Ketcham, who was 14 when she revealed her secret. The story quickly reached the doctor's bosses at the Association of Baptists for World Evangelism in Pennsylvania. What happened next is almost unbelievable.
I didn't know a lot of things. I didn't know what was necessarily right or what was wrong. I just knew what I felt in my heart was uneasy.
Just days after 14-year-old Kim James told her pastor that Ketcham had sexually abused her, 2 church leaders flew to Chicago. They found Kim at Great America Amusement Park. Kim and her sisters were home for the summer, her parents still in Bangladesh. Then, without telling her parents why, the 2 Baptist missionary leaders flew her to Bangladesh.
We had no clue what was going on.
Kim says she'll never forget that flight.
But I got up a couple times and went and just hung out in the back and was staring out one of the windows where the food was and was crying. And some lady asked me, what's wrong, are you okay? And I almost told her those 2 gentlemen kidnapped me.
It was on that trip, she says, that they told her to write her confession of a quote-unquote physical relationship with Dr. Don that transgressed God's word and that was not pleasing to him.
I thought, well, this is the way God would want me to be sorry for my sin.
When they reached Bangladesh, the 2 Baptist leaders made her confront the doctor, along with his wife, Kitty. Kim's parents were in the room.
They had me apologize to him. I apologized to him for to Don Ketcham and to Kit.
You apologized to them?
Yep, for my actions or for whatever I played in this, what part I played in this.
The part of a 12-year-old girl with a 58-year-old man. Ketcham admitted to heavy petting, later to French kissing the girl, but denied having sex with her. He also denied molesting anybody else. ABWE quickly dismissed him from the mission.
I was told not to speak about it, ever. My parents were told not to speak to me about it. I wasn't allowed to talk to my sisters. I couldn't talk. We weren't allowed to talk about it.
By whom? Who told you that?
ABWE.
So nobody discussed it. Nobody. It was never brought up.
The secrecy kept other victims from coming forward.
I knew that one thing you didn't want to be was a victim, and that you did not want to be tied in any way to Don Ketcham, and that this did not go well for you if you were.
After several suicide attempts, Kim says she finally asked ABWE for help in 2001, leading her to sign a confidentiality agreement with Ketcham in exchange for $26,500. Hush money. She later learned that other women had come forward, telling of alleged abuse they say happened to them years before Kim had come forward, allegations they had kept mostly to themselves.
I don't know how much detail I want to go into.
Cheryl Petrovich of Grand Rapids says Uncle Don violated her during physical exams in Bangladesh starting when she was 5 or 6.
I had a lot of bad memories. I remember my mom sitting in the corner of the room often, and he would have his back to her doing things that he shouldn't do.
Her sister, Linda Zylstra, remembers breast exams that seemed to last forever.
I'm 9 years old, and there's comments being made about sexual development.
9 victims told investigators they believed he had drugged them. Finally, in 2013, under intense pressure from victims, ABWE hired a private company to investigate. Its report found the doctor had sexually molested 23 girls and women in Bangladesh, including Kim, and that ABWE had covered it up.
I blame them for hiding this, putting out everything under the rug, trying to save face.
What good is spreading the gospel if you're doing it, over the backs of wounded children?
For the women, the report is vindication. Some say it shows the new leaders at ABWE are moving in the right direction. But now they worry there could be other victims in Allendale, where Ketcham practiced for 23 years.
The struggle for me is the institution that protected and covered up and therefore exposed an unknown number of others.
Ketcham is retired now, 85 years old, still living in Wyoming with his wife, Kitty. The state took his license in 2012 after ABWE finally reported him to the State Board of Medicine.
I'm just kind of curious if you were to come across Don Ketcham, what would you do?
Gosh, I don't know. I'd probably turn around and walk away.
I would want to say, how could you?
I wouldn't speak to him. The thought of seeing him, I just couldn't be in the same room as him ever again. I would have nothing to say to him.
Looking right into his eyes, what you'd want to say?
I will win. I am winning now. I am a James, I'm a fighter. And even though it's taken this many years, I will win. I'm a survivor.
Now, ABWE has apologized to victims and offered counseling. Now, several victims say that they've actually also opened up some possible settlements for cash. Here in West Michigan, the Ottawa County Sheriff's Department believes there may be other victims. If you have information, they ask you to call them. And for the entire story, go to woodtv.com.
Incredible report. Thank you, Ken. Stay with us. We'll have your 8-day forecast next.
This is 24-hour News 8 at 6 with Brian Sterling, Susan Shaw, meteorologist Bill Steffen, and sports director Jack Doze.
Welcome back. I'm Leon Hendricks.
I'm Emily Leonard. Brian and Sue are off today. A longtime doctor from Wyoming was in court today accused of sexually assaulting a girl at his office.
Yeah, he's the same doctor who was the subject of a report that alleged he'd molested nearly 24 girls and women in Bangladesh more than 2 decades ago. Target 8 investigator Ken Kolker broke the story on the charge Monday. He's here with what happened today, Ken.
Yeah, Emily and Leon, Dr. Don Ketcham, actually former Dr. Don Ketcham, turned himself in this morning at Hudsonville District Court. He is already free on a $5,000 PR bond, which means he didn't have to put up any money to get out of jail. A probable cause affidavit obtained by Target 8 shows a woman, now 23, told Ottawa County Sheriff detectives she was 6 or 7 years old sometime in 1999 when Ketcham molested her in his office in Allendale. She told police the assault lasted about 15 seconds. Detectives have said that the girl's mom was in the exam room at the time, but that the doctor blocked her view of what was happening. She first came forward in 2011, but detectives say Ketcham was out of the country and she and her mom did not pursue it. The Sheriff's Department recently reached back out to her after Target 8 told the stories of 5 women allegedly molested by Ketcham in Bangladesh in the 1970s and 1980s, when he worked there as a Baptist missionary doctor. Most of the alleged victims in that case were the children of Baptist missionaries. A report showed he committed some of those assaults under the guise of medicine, but that he never faced charges because it happened overseas and so long ago. The criminal complaint against Ketcham, signed by a judge yesterday, lists at least 4 alleged Bangladesh victims as witnesses. Detectives say they plan to include the doctor's past to bolster the case against him.
Now, we need to point out that after sexual misconduct allegations forced him from the mission in Bangladesh in 1989, Ketcham started practicing medicine in Allendale, but the state of Michigan forced him to surrender his license after learning 4 years ago about those allegations. Now, we've tried reaching Ketcham, who's 85 and living in the city of Wyoming. We also left a message for his attorney. The former doctor is expected back in court on December 28th for a hearing to determine if he'll go to trial.